It's the 8th of the 3rd 2025. Only 8 more sleeps. Let's go until we get ourselves some racing. 2025 season, and I cannot wait for it. But on this morning, there are a couple F1 centric threads at which we need to pull. Max Verstappen has played down his chances of winning himself a 5th consecutive World Drivers' Championship. We will talk about Drive to Survive, Toto, the boy who cried wolf, coming out and talking about Lewis Hamilton and his stipulations around Maximilian Verstappen. For the avoidance of doubt, we've always said that Toto will drop kick in the face one King George Russell of Kingsley, Norfolk, if that meant getting a whiff of the signature of one Maximilian Verstappen. Drive to Survive has made us look like geniuses, hasn't it? So too, we'll talk about rules and stipulation, flexi wing, both front and back, mini DRS. We've said has been the battleground upon which the Drivers' and Constructors' Championship in 2025 will be fought. And again, proof positive courtesy of our mates over at autoracer.it. So too, we'll talk about Lewis Hamilton saying that his partnership with Charles Leclerc, aka modern day Jean Alesi, is the best that there's ever been in F1 history. What are we doing, chat? I mean, really? Can we take Lewis Hamilton? But again, some say that there's agency theory in there, that there is a motivation for Sir Lewis Cole to be saying such things. Should we get to that first, chat? Because there's lots to get through. Go on. Lewis Hamilton has said that his driver pairing with Charles Leclerc is the best that we've ever seen in human F1 history. Pull the other one, Sir Lewis. I understand why you've said that, and we'll get to his why shortly. But you're telling me that Charles, aka modern day Jean, and Lewis are better than, let's say, a Senna and a Prost, a Hill and a Clark? Are you having a giraffe? Better than Michael Schumacher and bloody Rubens Barrichello? You must be kidding. What are we smoking here? Again, for the avoidance of doubt, on the Cameron CC Triple C channel, we will never ever sacrifice truth value nor objectivity at the altar of partisanship nor cognitive dissonance. And this would be doing that now. Lewis and Charles better than Schumacher and Rubens. Behave yourself. You know what? I'd argue that, let alone, I mean, we can have another conversation about being the best driver pairing in history, but I don't think it's the best Lewis Hamilton driver pairing, lest we forget in 2007, Lewis partnered Fernando Alonso. That Lewis with that version of Fernando Alonso would absolutely beat, in points terms, Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton. This iteration of you're having a laugh. Yeah, I cannot, Benzie. Turtle, no chance. But there's a reason why Lewis is saying this now. Potentially, if you speak to some F1 aficionados, potentially Lewis is teeing himself up, realizing that his approach in 2025 needs to be one of pragmatism. He knows, he has to know, by dint of his performance versus King George Russell last year, that Charles Leclerc in qualifying is going to be a very steep mountain that he'll need to climb. If you're arguing how many times of the 24 do you think Lewis Hamilton's going to out-qualify Charles Leclerc this year? How many? What, 5? 10? Maybe? At a push? Around Canada and Silverstone potentially, tracks around which Lewis Hamilton always goes well. Apart from those, you've got to argue that a fire-breathing dragon in Charles Leclerc, for which Sir Lewis will need to slay, will dominate Sir Lewis Hamilton. And again, my crystal ball is as murky as the next person's, but if we're arguing most likely, most probable outcomes, then I would argue that Charles is ridiculous, let's be honest. And again, he's learned a lot as far as racing, race IQ, strat in real time. He's still got a ways to come, right? He trended down his mistakes in 2024 massively, and that's worthy of mention. But his gift has always been his pace in absolute terms. Forget modern day Jean Alesi, modern day Gilles Villeneuve, some will argue. And that's, again, the dragon for which Sir Lewis and Sir Lewis Hamilton fans, stands, fundamentalists and extremists will need to slay for. But I'm not having that. What, that Senna and Prost are not as strong a drivers pairing as is Sir Lewis and Charles. Behave yourself. We can't take that serious. We cannot. That's nonsense. F1 muggles talk, I would argue, Indeed. Go on then, and let's talk about Max Verstappen, because he's talked to Viaplay. And again, he's doing one of these, right? He's playing down his chances, trying to take pressure off of his not insubstantial shoulders ahead of the Drivers' Championship in 2025. What sticks out, what jumps off the page at me, though, is the contrast. That on day one of testing, Max Verstappen was saying one thing, that it was only good surprises. Now, to Viaplay, it's all doom and gloom, and I don't know which one to believe. And things change, of course, variables change, of course, but I don't know which one of these iterations of Max Verstappen I'm invested in, because they can't both be right. Max Verstappen after day one said that it was only good surprises. Now to Viaplay, he says that I don't think we can fight at Melbourne. There's only one team that will be fighting for championships, as at the 8th of the 3rd, 2025, 10:23. And that team has a name. That team's name is McLaren. It's the orange team, all day, all night. Here's what Max Verstappen said verbatim. At the moment, only one team can fight for championships, and that team is orange. That's a very nice colour, of course, but from our side, we still have work to do. Other teams want to see some improvements as well, I think. So at the moment, one team is clearly in front. Oh, the humanity. I thought we were going for it, chat. I thought it was going to get techie. I expected a four-way fight for the Drivers' Championship, but Max Verstappen is telling us in real time that we want to expect two between OJ Piastri and Lando Norris after New March. I hope you're good. Max says, what episodes we'll get to Drive to Survive? I promise you. I haven't watched all of them, and that's techie, especially me being a proponent of Drive to Survive. I don't think I will watch all of them, just the most significant ones. Style is not super happy at Red Bull. No, he's not. Go on then. This is what Max Verstappen has said, the totality of. In terms of balance, it does feel a bit more connected when entering the corners, and also the middle of the corners. That was their problems, the travails and foibles that they experienced in the RB20 car last year, right? Understeer settings, poor maximal velocity, in stark contrast to what they had and leveraged to such great success in 2-3, right? Understeer wasn't even a thing. Like fade to black, it turned on a dime. And as far as maximal velocity, it was chaos. Double DRS settings, you remember? Aerodynamic efficiency, that was what the RB20 was. And then all of a sudden something happened. RB21, inertia valve, fiddle brake potentially, or maybe it was just a narrowing of their operating window, some say. Max continues, those things are obviously not our strongest points, understeer, maximal velocity. And I keep mentioning that it doesn't always have to be said by to the outside world, but during the meetings, we obviously talk about it. Oh, the humanity, Maximilian Verstappen. Way to play down your chances, sir. That doesn't fill me with a lot of hope that Max has a chance. And then when you check it out as far as the forensic accountants, the odds makers amongst us, they have Lando and Norris winning 40% of the time. Ergo, if you run 100 simulations of the championship under the current circumstances, Lando, they say, will win 40 of them. 40. Maximilian Verstappen, some say 20. Ergo, Lando Norris has double the chance, double the probability of winning the championship in 2025 that Maximilian Verstappen does. I'm not sure that passes the common sense smell test, if I'm honest. I think the forensic accountants have got it wrong, notwithstanding the fact that the consensus is that McLaren have the quickest machine going into Australia. There's still a lot to play for, chap. I wouldn't be so doom and gloom, not just yet. If you understand who Maximilian Verstappen is, for some say soon to be 5-time champion, and so too the Bulls that are red. By the way, in stark contrast, to leverage some more doom and gloom, if you are dining at the altar of a levelling of the competitive landscape in 2025, reports per Planet F1 are saying that King George Russell had a chat with Lando Norris, and during that conversation, Lando was quite open and honest, saying that the McLaren in that MCL39 have found a lot of pace year on year. Now, Lando, before the world's press and media, was doom and gloom also, wasn't he? Doing the PR sandbag thing. Oh, yeah, we found a little bit, but there's still concern around the instability at the rear, particularly on the medium to high speed turns. However, in private, Lando Norris saying something different. being super confident to his old mate George, and George has grassed him up and said that Lando says that year and year McLaren have found a lot of pace. Walther, Gio, oh the humanity. A little hectic day in the hospital, mate. Go well, Umanch. I hope you're don't work yourself too hard. You know what I mean? I think Max is saying all of this so you can leave red. But go on then, let's talk about that, Gio, because in the latest episode, or one of the latest episodes in the series, that is 7 of Drive to Survive, Toto, the boy who cried wolf, has confirmed a lot of our suspicions. Here's what he said, and what we've been saying: Toto, the boy who cried wolf, will drop kick in the chest George Russell, Kimi Antonelli, or anyone else not named Max Verstappen, if indeed that means that he can get a whiff of Max Verstappen's signature now. How many times have we said that on this channel? And then you see Netflix's Drive to Survive and you get proof positive. Toto, having a conversation with his Mrs. Susie Wolff, has talked about his sorrow that Sir Lewis has left him. And not that it's happened, but more around the timing of. Toto looks at Susie and says, I can't believe Lewis has left us at this moment in time. Why would he leave now? Well, I've got an answer for you, Toto, the boy who cried wolf. Because your team and your car has been SH1T for the past 36 months. Chap, stop asking rhetorical questions to which you know the answer. Of course, Lewis is going to leave. You know, you had a conversation with him, and again, this was filmed on camera, and Lewis told you that your timelines now differ. You as a shareholder, you're looking to the medium to long term, 5 to 10 year time horizon. Lewis is looking 3 to 4 years maximum. Not looking to be around that long, although sometimes he says that he's looking to race till he's 50. His best years, again, if they're still in front of him, the next 2 or 3 maximum. That's why Lewis is looking to leave, because he couldn't see a light. There was no light in the tunnel. It was the allegory of the cave. He was looking at shadows, and had been looking at shadows. That indeed had become his reality over the past 36 months. That's why Toto, the boy who cried wolf, Sir Lewis Hamilton, decided to leave and join Scuderia Ferrari. What are we doing here? You know the answers to these questions. And then muting who can replace Sir Lewis Hamilton's not insubstantial shoes. He has a conversation with his Mrs. Susie. He says, maybe Carlos, Susie suggests. What about Carlos? I mean, he's a good driver. Toto, if some buts, not too keen on Carlos' side. What about Fernando El Pan Alonso, man from Oviedo, Asturias, 2-time champion in 06 and 05? Susie says, probably not. Fernando Alonso, at his age, isn't the type of guy that you're going to build a dynasty, that you're going to herald in a new era of greatness and silverware for Mercedes. He's too old. Brilliant driver, says Toto, but Susie counters, too old. He is not the guy. And then George Russell is brought up in the conversation now. Well, could you build on George? Can George be that leader? And that's the $64,000 question going into 2025, right? Is George that guy? And Netflix counters, well, probably not so too Will Buxton. If you look at some of his mistakes, right? Mistakes at Canada in 23 and 24. Mistakes at Singapore in 23. Mistakes at Australia in 24. This dude is a mistake merchant, some will say, of the unforced error variety. Not dissimilar to Charles Leclerc, aka modern day Jean Alesi. But Georges don't happen at any time. They happen in clutch time, winning time, when there's something on offer, when there's a podium towards the end of the race, almost each and every single time if there's a trend. And that is a concern, right? If you're arguing that George Russell could be the next one, could be your next champion, is part of the next generation alongside Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris, then why would he be making mistakes? Multitudinous ones of the unforced variety. And I think that's where you have yourself a problem, Toto. Show improved time for George Russell. George is doing his campaign propaganda. Well, if I beat Lewis Hamilton 2 or 3 times and he's the GOAT in some people's eyes, then that must make me one of the GOATs. F1 maths doesn't always work, though, King George. That's your problem, mate. Got to go and show improved this year, hasn't he, King George? And I think he's a good driver when he's ready. I mean, by dint of his performance, as I would concur, against Sir Lewis. If Sir Lewis is the GOAT, then, and you beat Lewis 2 of 3 and dominate the chap in qualifying, then that's got to be worth something now. But I'd argue that, again, the real proof in the pudding will be this year for King George. It's going to get techie. Who's the principal? Toto or Cece, says Turtle. I mean, you listen, behind every good man is a good woman, some will say. And you've got to seek counsel from your closest of counsellors, do you not, Turtle? I don't hate that we saw that conversation between Toto and Susie, because I think it shows that the ruminations, that the mechanics in Toto's cerebral are still sharp, no pun intended. He's got to seek counsel because these are big decisions. And again, if Toto wants to bring the silver team, the Silver Arrow team even, back to the mountaintop, then these are the conversations that he's got to be having, because Kimi Antonelli by himself might not be it, even in 2 or 3 years' time. Super quick, but speed in and of itself doesn't win championships, does it? Oh, and by the way, in that conversation, if you want vindication that we're barking up the right tree sometimes on the Cameron CC channel, Toto says of Lewis Hamilton the following: I don't understand why he's left now. We've ticked that box already. Yes, you do, Toto Wolff. Don't play silly buggers around here. But then he continues that I promised Sir Lewis one thing, that I wouldn't talk to Max Verstappen. Now that Lewis has left, I can have that conversation with Max. Let's address the second point first. We know that at Miami and over the summer break, Toto scheduled meets with Team Verstappen. I'm talking about Raymond Vermeulen, father of Max, and Max too, with a view to discuss a move to the Silver Arrows team, the boys and girls at Brackley and Brixworth, as early as 2026, new rules and regs. We know that happened. The reason why, because Toto had wanted to have those conversations, wanted to fix for the ills of 2015-16 when he had the chance to sign Max but didn't throw his hat into the arena, had himself then Nico and Lewis. There was no room at the Mercedes Inn. Now, however, he's looking to fix for that. Again, I would argue that he will be ruining that mistake in real time. You can't let the next generational talent slip through your hands at the altar of Nico Rosberg, 2016 champ, who had long since bloody retired. The one that they call Toto Wolff, Toto the boy who cried wolf, excuse me, will be looking to fix for that in real time. What jumped off the page, however, to many Lewis Hamilton naysayers, is that Lewis didn't want Max in that team. He desperately didn't want Toto to even have a conversation with him why Lewis was still in that team. Now, polemic, some will say, how can Lewis call himself a champion if he doesn't want to beat the other champions in the same team? Well, Lewis has always said that one come all, I will beat them all comers. But what about this? Why would Toto Wolff say that? Then surely those two things are mutually exclusive. One flies in the face of the other. However, here's what I would counter with. Life is difficult enough, let alone life in F1, the upper echelons of motorsport globally. Why would you look to make your life even more difficult than it is? All of those top tier drivers with a semblance of race IQ would never want Max Verstappen alongside them. Why? Why would you want that for yourself if you have power and influence sufficient to mitigate for that eventuality, to stop that happening? Then of course you're going to try and stop that happening. Indeed, you'd put that in your contract, as Alain Prost did in '93 with Williams about Ayrton Senna. You know the story that Ayrton Senna encouraged Ron Dennis in 1988 to go and sign the next one, Ayrton Senna. But then soon thereafter, it was trouble and haranguement. Alain Prost didn't need that stress. If again he wanted to win world championships, why would he have Ayrton Senna alongside him? And thereafter, Alain Prost said, you know what, Williams, I will drive for you, Frank. However, there's only one thing that I demand of you. That's to not go and sign Ayrton. Don't sign that chap and we are good. We can crack on. Frank desperately wanted to sign Senna though, and that's how that relationship at the end of 1993 ultimately fell apart. Sebastian Vettel and bloody Mark Webber, multi-21 settings. There always will be driver hierarchy in this. These drivers are looking for every millisecond of lap time. So how can you not expect a Lewis Hamilton to say, don't sign Max Verstappen? How can you not expect a Max Verstappen to say, don't go and sign Carlos Sainz Jr. on the back of all the rancor and friction that we had back in 2015? Toro Rosso, Franz Tost, Helmut Marko. You act in Max Verstappen's best interest, sackings all over. This is what happens, and I don't think it would be anything. It couldn't be F1 if it were not that. No big deal, therefore, potentially. Although there are some people in F1 purists who will argue that Lewis Hamilton should encourage Toto to go and sign a Max Verstappen. So confident in himself and of his own ability should the 7-time champion. But I think that's nonsense though. I think line of least resistance, right? Life is difficult enough already. You don't want to make it more difficult. Max was never going to Mercedes. It was Jos that wanted to do the Turtle. I'm not so sure, Turtle. I wouldn't write it off. Go on and let's talk about Max's future. Because again, stipulation, word on the F1 curb, if that's something that you want to believe in or be invested in, is that Max, 3 races. If after the 3rd race, which if I recall correctly is Suzuka, Max Verstappen is not in the top 3 in the drivers' standings, then we're going to have ourselves a conversation, because Max has a performance clause and always has had performance clauses such in his contract, even way back in 2018. But he has one in 2025, if rumour is to be believed, that he can null and void his contract as at the 3rd race if he's not in the top 3 in the drivers' standings. Take that for whatever you will. Max Verstappen is not in this game for... He wants to win. There's a moment in Drive to Survive, by the way, where you hear Max Verstappen in the episode Frenemies that documents or chronicles even the relationship between Lando and Max. There's a portion where Max is asked, you see the contrast? They click, they scan or pan even to Lando Norris, and Lando's saying, oh, I don't think I need to change, and I'm a nice guy and I care too much, and yeah, I'm a bit of a party boy, and yada, yada, yada. Pan to cut to Max Verstappen. And Max says, I've always wanted to be an F1 driver. That's my job. Now that it's my job, I just want to win. I don't care what people think of me. The contrast jumps off the page at you. And in that light, under that umbrella heading, you can understand well why Max Verstappen, if Red Bull haven't built that chopper car, will leave with immediate effect. Why would he stay? This is Red Bull. You see all of the rancor that's still going on, misconduct, allegation gate, legal proceedings, potentially, depending on what source, F1 publication you're invested in. I'm telling you, this is an ongoing thing. And you can see, I tell you what, that bloody first episode that chronicles Christian Horner, I forget what it's called now, Business as Usual. Again, based on what Christian Horner said about the misconduct allegations in real time. No, nothing, we're cool. Nothing's going on in the background. Whilst that was nothing of the sort. Everything was going on. It was Jos versus Christian, Austria versus the UK. Christian trying to spin off racing, Red Bull Racing Technologies, leveraging British financiers so that he can become a team principal come owner over humanity. It was beef. WhatsApp messages leaking out of everybody's AW. Like, it was chaos. It was absolute chaos. So props in that sense to Max Verstappen for keeping a level head and being, as some say, the adult in the room when all around them. Keep your head, Rudyard, when all around you are losing. There's Max Ferrari strategy risk, says Benzi. Mate, it's going to get chaotic, is it? I just can't wait. 8 more sleeps and we're right in there. Go on, there's something else I wanted to talk to you about. Battlegrounds for 2025. Flexi wing at the front and bloody mini DRS at the back. Already, Red Bull have lodged a cheeky complaint. They've put this document, a white paper together, accusing Ferrari, Mercedes and McLaren in particular, I think, of leveraging mini DRS, which at this stage everybody knows is against the rules, notwithstanding Tom Biasis and all the FIA race directors and stewards saying that, oh, we've put the proper load. If it passes the load test as they did last year, then it passes the load test. What? Well, now going into 2025, that load test is going to change. It's going to be more stringent. In addition to the fact that as at race 9, the flexi wing parameters of the front are going to change. 15 millimeters on the outboard as it was in 2024. I want to say 13 millimeters this year. 5 and 3 for the inboard portion of the front wing. The guys in 2025 that can circumvent those flexi wing rules will have themselves the whip hand. I am telling you. That is the battleground upon which the 2025 season will be fought. I can see some drop kicks. Rafa, I'm telling you, That's what Toto, the boy who cried wolf, is after. I am telling you, he can't forgive himself for not having signed Maximilian Verstappen when he had the bloody chance. And now look, Lewis is left, and that's almost like a double whammy. It rubs salt into that Maximilian Verstappen opportunity cost wound, doesn't it? Could have had him then, didn't seize the chance, invested in Nico Rosberg. He went away and retired that year after he won himself a championship. And now look, Max Verstappen is at Toro Rosso. It's like, oh. And then you get Lewis Hamilton leaving, which is like, okay, so if he'd known, if he'd had a crystal ball and knew that Nico and Lewis were going to leave, then of course he'd definitely have signed Max Verstappen then. Bloody no, man, if Lewis out-qualifies Charles in Melbourne, can with egg in effect. Go on then, Pericles. To be fair, Pericles, let me address that actually. It's a good shout because Lewis tends to go very well in Australia. But just look at the odds. I was looking for odds around qualifying for Australia before we jumped on the live. I couldn't get them. But if you look at the drivers' standing odds, I mean, the bookmakers have Charles Leclerc as a massive favourite over Lewis Hamilton in the Drivers' Championship. It's not even close. Let's see, Pericles. But yeah, I don't know. Here's what I say about that. My crystal ball is as murky as the next person's. I'm not making predictions out here. That would be nonsensical. Truth, value, objectivity, partisanship, etc. But if we are talking about, Pericles, what the most likely outcome is, Pericles, nobody's going to tell me, nobody can look me in the face straight and tell me that Lewis is going to roundly out-qualify Charles Leclerc over the course of a 24 race season. It's just not going to I just don't believe it, Pericles. Based upon what, Pericles? Based upon a Lewis Hamilton prime that was 200,000 years ago. What are we talking about? No chance. I just don't think it's, especially Charles Leclerc in this vein of form, trending down his errors of the unforced variety to as near as makes no difference, 0. If Lewis had moved there in 2021 and it was Charles Leclerc and he was young and he was still yeeting it into the barrier at the French Grand Prix, do you know what I mean? And still making cheeky mistakes at Imola and Baku every single... But that's not Charles Leclerc now. Variables change over time, and the Charles Leclerc, this iteration of Charles Leclerc, if he's not in final form quite yet, he's very nearly, and that scares me as a Sir Lewis Hamilton fan, despite what Sir Lewis Hamilton extremists say. Max equals pure racer, probably be offered a massive deal. I mean, Benzi, depending on who you're listening to, and some Aston Martin C-suite execs, he's already been offered that. That's what Aston Martin are promising sponsors, at least, that they will sign very soon, while Maximilian Verstappen to sit alongside Adrian Newey and Andy Cowell and Honda as an engine, no power unit manufacturer. Strong combination that. But Lawrence Stroll wants to assemble himself a super team. When he gets passionate, remember, Lawrence says he wins. And that's techier than techie things. Melbourne prediction, says Benzi. I don't know yet. It's still too bloody close. I think Max will go well. It's just the honest truth. On this channel, we never back against Max. 20% as versus Lando Norris's 40%. Does that feel right? That Lando Norris wins the championship 40% of the time under these current circumstances versus Maximilian Verstappen's 20%. I mean, this is one thing that sticks out on Drive to Survive, that there's a different, they are different, they're different people, and the way that you conduct yourself and your personality drip feeds down through your driving style, right? Whether you're ruthless and aggressive or passive and compliant. Maximilian Verstappen, of course, being the former, Lando Norris being the latter, and I'm not sure you can change that overnight. Seeing Lando Norris key and shake hands with Max Verstappen. Tell Max Verstappen very playfully that I'll get you next year. I was like, hang on. Just lost to Max Verstappen. He's just won the championship. Obviously, do the noble sportsmanly thing and congratulate your friend, but not with a smile. I mean, can you imagine Ayrton Senna doing that? Or I know they're different people and you shouldn't compare and contrast personality. Comparison being the thief of joy. But bloody Nora. It's a bit nice, is Lando. And I think Max always will feel like he can have... I think Max, going into Australia, I think he will see Lando as a dude that he can keep under manners. In stark contrast to, let's say, a King George. It's very different. It's a very different relationship dynamic. Now, they're friends, but I think in Max's mind, he just doesn't need to feel threatened by Lando. Christian Horner speaks to it in Drive to Survive. There are loads of tidbits across Drive to Survive that you will be enchanted by, not least of which is when Christian Horner says Lando wants to play with the big boys, but with that there comes a tax. There's a tax to be paid. If you want to play with the big boys, then there's a way to conduct, there's a way to behave, there's a way in which you're going to have to conduct yourself on track, and that doesn't look like what Lando Norris was doing last year, does it? It looks very different to that. Turn one, defensive posture, aggression. There are sacrifices to be made. You can't be partying on the bloody party bus in Amsterdam midway through the bloody season. Driver hierarchy, a team behind you that understands what it takes to win and is prepared to make those sacrifices. Then all and sundry, those are the taxes that you need to be prepared to pay if indeed you harbour aspirations of winning championships of the drivers and or constructors variety, right? Especially if you have the bloody fastest car. Here's the question that I'll ask you, chap. Here's the question. I've always said that if you're going to beat Max Verstappen, I think there is a blueprint. You need to take a leaf from Sebastian Vettel's book, right? Drop it on pole, lights the flag. if you get in any sort of like ding dong battle with Max, as at March 2025, 90% of the time you're going to come out either DNF'd or on the bad end of it. Max is going to overtake you and it's going to be a problem. Or if you need to overtake Max, then you're going to be heart in Max. It's going to be squeaky bum time. Ergo, line of least resistance thesis. Sebastian Vettel settings. Put it on pole, lights the flag surely. That's the modus operandi that Lando Norris, if again he wants to win, wants to smooth his path to a cheeky World Drivers' Championship trophy, then that's what he'll need to do. And I'm not sure even with speed advantage in hand, I don't know if he's got that. Been a fan of Flav since the early 2000s with Flavio. We're talking about Flavio. There's an episode in there that I haven't watched where Flavio talks about Jack Doohan. He's gone, isn't he? I feel so bad for Jack. Now he gets his opportunity finally, but it's a poison chaliced opportunity. They've already got Franco Colapinto in on a long-term reserve driver contract, ready to shoe him in to that Jack Doohan role. Jack Doohan's already not impressed. So 2 things. I think 3 strikes and Jack Doohan's out. I think he's already on 2 strikes. Last year in the final Grand Prix, didn't impress. Super slow, everybody said. In testing already, didn't impress. People said he was slow. Again, couldn't get to grips with the very temperamental nature of F1 cars in this Grand Effect era. Strike 3 will come within the first couple of races, potentially within as soon as the first race. If he struggles in Australia, I mean, the writing is on the wall for Jack Doohan, and I think that's sad. You want to give these rookies like a wide berth, right? Give them a chance. I mean, 6 races, some might say, is a bit short. Give them 12, give him half a season, and then you can, do you know what I mean? How many races did Nick De Vries get? 9 or 10? Give him like at least 10 races, and do you know, a wide berth, no pressure, Jack. Go out and perform, and let's see how you get on. What you can't do is I just think it's unfair. But then some will say, per Ron Dennis, that F1 is a piranha's tank. Like, you can't, you know what I mean? Like, if you sink or swim, mate, that's all that is. Flavio is a legend. He's a con man par excellence. True, very true. Controversy corner. Did F1 announcement Cadillac to avoid? Okay, DOJ. Benzie, there's so much. That Cadillac F1, there's so many weird things about it. The timing of it. Like, why all of a sudden now? Was it something to do with the DOJ? Did it have something to do with the fact that Trump was about to come in and like they wanted to push it through underneath the Biden? I have no idea. But I think it's always political, right? But why did High Tech and Lucky Sons not get through then? High Tech have already won their case against the FIA. FIA said that High Tech didn't have the financial resources requisite to make them a contender proper, to overcome the barriers to entry to become the 11th team on the grid. High Tech said, what are you talking about? I'll see you in court. And High Tech won their appeal. Like, so what are we? Honestly, it's nonsense. And then you come to find out, per Joe Sayward, that Mohammed Ben Sulayem has links to Cadillac F1. that his mates and some of his distant cousins already store a lot of GM's stock and transport them via their cargo ships. And like, what are we doing here? I mean, this is why you got to get rid of MBS. I'm not saying this is all allegedly, right? I don't know anything. But if you're connecting the dots in the background and you know that you have an FIA president who's already apparently, allegedly, tried to reinstitute for Fernando Plan Alonso a title-sponsored Aramco Fernando Plan Alonso at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix a couple of years ago, then like, what, like, it's not the least likely outcome, is it? Or eventuality that Mohammed bin Sulayem would overstep his remit yet again. You would almost expect it if past this prologue. So Cadillac, so glad Cadillac is back. Go on, let's talk about the timing is proactive to avoid political pressure in the US. But go on then. So, Benzi, this is what I know about the political landscape, but it doesn't quite make sense to me because John Maloney, the owner of Liberty Media, is a big Trump guy, isn't he? So why did they rush it through under the Biden tenure? I don't know. And then the DOJ, the anti-competitive, something was going on, but I can't quite connect the dots. It's a tough one, that. It's a tough political Rubik's Cube to solve for, and I've pondered it. There is something there. The DOJ, Trump coming in, Biden's, I don't know what's going on. I don't understand it. I do know actually that some of the owners of Cadillac were Biden supporters. So maybe that's why they pushed it through very quickly. Maybe that was Biden. I don't know. I have no idea. But the timing of it, the fact that they rushed it through so quickly, I smell a rat. MBS is the real problem, says. I mean, when is MBS not the real problem, Max? Do you know what I mean? MBS is. You know what? Since we're talking MBS, there's a brilliant article on Motorsport magazine. For the avoidance of doubt, all F1 publications and journos are created equal, but some are created more equal than others. Motorsport magazine, one of the go-toest ones. Shout out to friend of the channel, Matt Bishop. Legendary settings. On that website, they've done a deep dive into all of the indiscretions of Mohammed bin Sulayem, and there are a gazillion. We're not rappers. Jewelry gate. F1 asset value, trying to lowball. Like, what do we do? Honestly, it's nonsense. There's a gazillion. My memory fails me, but there are loads. Sacking all the people, 2 audit committee members of the 4, getting rid of those so that you can mark your own homework. Like, what are we doing? Like, what are we? Like, it's nonsense. Pushing through Andretti so quickly without consultation of the other 20 like, honestly, it just makes no sense. Benzi, I cannot. John Maloney was close to Rupert Matt. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. It's you can do some digging, mate, and you'll find where all the bodies are buried. It is techie than techie things, as it always is. But all I know is this, chat, as we round third base. There is 8 sleeps to go until we get ourselves some F1 proper. Then we'll be talking about some proper, juicy, meaty news that will be racing on track. And we won't have to wade in these very murky waters. I mean, there's always going to be things going on in the F1 news cycle. There will always be multitudinous F1 threads at which we can pull. But I mean, sometimes you just want to see some racing, right? I want to get some answers to questions. Is Lewis still in his prime, as extremists and fundamentalists say? Is Maximilian Verstappen lowballing the potential of Red Bull? Is the RB21 going to look different at Australia to what it looked in Bahrain? Do Lando Norris and McLaren really have the whip hand? Are they going to get persecuted at the altar of mini DRS at the back and front wing flexibility at the front? I just want to get answers. Has Jack Doohan got more than a couple races in his locker? I need answers to these questions. Gabriel Bortoleto, the next one. Is Kimi Antonelli the Ayrton Senna reincarnate? I need to get answers to these questions, and we have 8 more sleeps to go until we get them.